We are on the record for hearings in the matters listed in the North Dakota Industrial Commission hearing docket for January 19th, 2022. I am Stephen Nelson, hearing examiner for these hearings. We are at the hearing room for the Department of Mineral Resources, Oil and Gas Division, and it is 9 o'clock a.m. On the docket, the following matters will be continued or dismissed. Case number 29144 is continued to February. Case number 29145, continued to February. Case number 29046 is continued to February. Case number 29155 is continued to February. And case number 29156 is continued to February. The administrative docket starts on page 4 with case number 29154 and goes through case number 29165. These cases will be heard in the next room with Michael Zisch. Audio recordings of the cases on the administrative docket will be placed on the Oil and Gas website by the end of the week. If you wish to appear in one of the matters on the administrative docket, please appear in the next room. If there is opposition to the matter, it will be brought back into this hearing room to be heard, and your statements and evidence will be taken. We will begin with case number 29142. A motion of the Commission to review the temporarily abandoned status of the White Rock Oil and Gas LLC number 2 Bechdel B, file number 12571, located in the northeast quarter of the southeast quarter of Section 34, Township 164 North, Range 85 West, Sherwood Field, Renville County, North Dakota, pursuant to North Dakota Century Code, Section 380804. All interested parties, please come forward.
I'm John S. Steinberger.
I'm sorry. No, go ahead, Steve.
Oh, could you repeat that? Sorry, we couldn't hear you all that well.
I'm John S. Steinberger Jr. I'm an attorney in Camera, North Dakota, bar ID 3345. I represent Gary Bechdel. He's also on the line, appearing telephonically.
Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, appearing in case 29142 on behalf of White Rock Oil and Gas, LLC.
And Donna Bonini from White Rock Oil and Gas, appearing telephonically.
And I guess, are we having John go first, or do we want any vendor? Do you have a preference?
I think he's the applicant, so.
So, Mr. Steinberger, we will have you and any witnesses that you would like to have speak go first.
All right, thank you, and good morning. And I appreciate Mr. Bender allowing me to appear telephonically. The situation is that the Bechdel well has not produced since 1998, and the thing is that Mr. Bechdel has tried without success to get White Rock to make some kind of a determination of what they were going to do in this matter. 5 minutes ago, I received an email indicating that as an exhibit, White Rock intends to evaluate this in 2022, and then possibly rework this well in 2023. I don't believe, and Mr. Bechdel also asserts that this is not good faith, and that the thing is that White Rock has had 23 years to do this. This is not current. This is not new technology, and that this well should be ordered, plugged, and abandoned.
Okay. And do you have any witnesses that you would like to speak?
I would like Mr. Bechdel to speak, please.
Okay. And is Mr. Bechdel on the line?
I am here.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and swear you in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, certainly.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay, my name is Gary Bechdel. I live on the family farm. This this location is right to the east, not quite a half a mile from my buildings. There has not been anything done there now for quite a few years, and what they have done is just trade stuff back and forth, like the old pumping units and the old well and stuff. They finally all rotted off there from sitting because of 25 years of no production, and it's created quite a hazard down there. And now they've taken out the tank battery, so they don't even have a tank battery to go back into. This well, when it was drilled, never did produce any amount of oil other than a barrel or two a day. And so I can't understand why they would think that they would re-drill a well like this when they're taking out the ones around it. Situation is, these wells have been there for so many years, since the middle 1960s. The depletion in it, they don't have the gas pressure. There's no gas pressure to fire treaters and stuff to handle the oil. If they did have any oil, they have to go to one of the other oil wells, which they have done on some of the ones that are still working up here. But for right now, it would be totally cost prohibitive to try and re-drill. And they re-drilled this once and took it back down to granite. So they're not going to go any deeper. There are no formations below there. There was 3 formations. But I was also on the doghouse when they pulled the samples and stuff for this. And it just doesn't seem possible that they could even consider re-drilling on that side of the highway. This well has a location with 2 roads going into it. One from the north-south road goes in to the pumping unit, and the one from the south goes in off the main highway. So I have to contend with 2 different roads taking care of the leafy spurge, which this area here came in with the oil and the water drainage. Now I have to control the leafy spurge and the obnoxious weeds on it. And a few years ago, it must have been probably 5 or 6, I don't keep track of that, the wellhead pipe rusted off on this, and the damn thing blew in. So I ended up with a lake of salt water out there in the field, and then this ran down the road ditch on the side of the road for a half a mile. And now that area that had the damage on it from the salt water, that don't grow anything but kochia. Nothing else will grow in that. And there isn't a whole lot you can do with something like that other than tear it out so many feet deep and fill it back in with whatever you can get to grow ground or manure. So that damage is on me and has been for several years. So I have been, the last 4 years, I have been sending bills to White Rock each year for acreage. And their total bill now, not just on this well, but the other ones too that they've taken out of production, is $52,545.48. White Rock has not given me any money for the last 4 years for my damages. I talked to him. The land manager for them is Jim Santorby, and I've talked to him several times. And he says they don't think they owe me anything because at one time there still was production in that area. What else I can help you with, I'm not sure. I was asked about the gas leaks because the pipes were rotting off in that well. I don't smell that air anymore since they plugged it. They put a TA plug in it. And then I guess I haven't got out of my vehicles and stuff. And you have to understand, I've been around this oil gas smell now for so many years that my sense of smell is very poor. I can't smell the hydrogen sulfide gas. So as far as a health threat, it could be to my whole family if they have the same thing I have on account of the high concentrations of HTS that will build up around these wells. I guess at this time I would like to try and answer any specific questions you have.
Well, Mr. Steinberger, do you have any questions for your witness?
No further questions.
Okay. And Mr. Bender, do you have any cross?
I don't have any questions.
And mission staff?
Gary, this is Bruce Hicks. You're talking about the saltwater leak that occurred. When was that?
Bruce, it was quite a few years ago. I don't remember exactly, but it was more than, I'd say, 5 or 6 years ago. It's when the top of that pipe valve rusted off, on top of the head there, and that blew back in, and then they made a lake up there of salt water a few days before they got to it and found it.
Do you recall who the operator was at that time?
It was before White Rock,
Okay,
so it would have been Whiting.
and was that area cleaned up?
They came in at the time and took out a couple of truckloads of stuff right around the pumping unit, but then it wasn't the pumping well. It had been abandoned, so they just kind of overlooked it. I did sell them a couple of truckloads of dirt, and they scattered over the top of it, but that salt came right through that.
You talked about the two roads going into the location and your loss
So
of...
one of them was going into the pumping unit because it had a double pumping unit. The B1 and the B2 was south of this one, and it had the tanks on it. And the line was pumped down to it. The only thing on this location was the pumping unit, and then but they used the tanks on the B1.
And with your loss of production and the charges that you billed to White Rock, have they ever paid anything for the loss of production?
No, they said that they didn't figure they owed me anything because there was production in the area. And I don't know if you've ever talked to White Rock, but you're lucky if you can get them when they're not on coffee break or gone. And the individual
I'm going to
I've been
object. This is
talking to him since
argumentative. This has absolutely nothing to do with the hearing. I'm going to object.
Okay, yep, sorry.
I'll let the question stand, but please avoid being argumentative if you can. Thank you.
You got it.
And Gary, you said that there was a hazard out there. What is the hazard that you're observing?
Right now, I can't smell hydrogen sulfide. I've been around so much that my senses are dull, but when we drive by there and stuff, the wife says she can smell it. And that's hydrogen sulfide on the rest of my family would be what I'd worry about, Bruce.
Okay, and you indicated that after they temporarily abandoned the well that you no longer smelled it. Do you believe that there's still some leakage occurring from that well?
I do not believe so right now. I think when they temporarily abandoned it and they took the head off there, that they got rid of the rotted off part of that pipe, and I haven't smelled it when I'm farming around it.
Okay, and the loss of production, what are you estimating as far, if this was reclaimed, how much acreage would you gain back in farmland?
Your Honor, does that include the roughly 5 acres of salt damaged land, or is that just the well site?
Well, I guess we would want to know what the total area that would be returned back to production, regardless of if it was 100% productive or not.
And I'm going to move to strike the statements with respect to 5 acres that were damaged by saltwater. There's no testimony in the record to that. I mean, that's Mr. Steinberger's conclusion and testimony. So I'll object to that and ask it to be stricken.
Mr. Steinberger, any response?
Well, on the recross, I will ask Mr. Beckadall how many acres of saltwater damage there is from this well. I believe he did testify there was 5 acres that was destroyed.
Well, I will deny the objection, but they will be noted. Thank you.
So Gary, in your estimate on your loss of production, you must have come up with some type of acreage that could be returned back to production. What are you indicating?
I was looking at 5 acres on account of when this thing blew in, it made a lake up around the pumping unit, but then that all drained down the ditch and out onto the flat next to the ditch. It goes north and south on the main road. So there's an area going north and south on the main road that has the same type of damage where it just raises kochia.
But I'm talking about, the reclaiming the road and the well site itself.
5 acres.
Okay. Yeah, there must be a central tank battery in the area, correct?
Are you talking for the oil for that well?
For the general area, the Beckett wells, you've got quite a bit of acreage in that area, and there's quite a few wells producing on that property, or had been. I assume that there was a central tank battery that all these went to?
No, it was never unitized into a central tank battery. Each one's had their own wells.
Okay, so
there's 3 sets of tank batteries on this half section.
So the Beckett B number 2 had its own battery?
No, the Beckett B number 1 and the B number 2 used the same tank battery. The B number 1 was drilled way earlier. The B number 1 was drilled in about 1962, and it was many years before that. It was about 6 years before the B number 2 was drilled.
Okay, thank you.
Gary, this is Lynn Helms. You may have stated it and I missed it, if so I apologize. Are you the surface owner and a mineral owner under
Correct.
the B well?
Correct?
And where are your mineral interests in and under this well?
You have to help me understand that question. What do you mean, where are they?
Yeah, I mean, so the well is in section 34. What minerals do you own in section 34? South quarter, northeast south quarter? What is your ownership?
All of them.
Oh, I missed that. So you own all the minerals under this well?
Well, my family does.
Okay.
It's divided amongst us 4 children.
All right.
My folks had it all.
Yes, thank you.
Any further questions from commission staff? Okay. Mr. Steinberger, do you have any redirect?
Mr. Beckett, so it's your testimony that if this well is ordered to be abandoned and the land remediated, that you will receive approximately 5 acres that would go back into ag production? Hello?
Hello, I'm here.
Did you hear my question, Mr. Beckett?
Yes?
Okay, so is it your testimony that...
Right, that's my testimony that this land should be reclaimed back to what it could be productive.
And that there's a consequence, if that happens, that you would be able to farm 5 more acres?
Yes. Actually, if they take this out and reclaim it, it will become more than 5 acres because the water drainage on that ground runs from the northwest to the southeast into East Cutbank Creek. And right now, with that oil well road across there, I've got several acres of sloughs that are unproductive because in the spring when the water comes across, it floods it out because it's held back by that east-west road.
So how many acres is it inundated because of that, the east-west road?
Another 2-3 acres at least are on the flat.
So if the Industrial Commission grants the relief that White Rock asks for, would you ask them to mandate that the suitable culverts be put through that road so as to stop the flow of the damming of the flow of water to the northwest?
Well, yes, it would be better if they just took the road out, let the natural flow of water go down so it could get to that ditch that runs north and south on the highway there. Culverts there's no reason if they take that well out and reclaim it that they'll need that well road.
Well, and I understand that, but if the Industrial Commission says that White Rock, you can continue your exploration that you're proposing that's on their exhibit, would you want that road to no longer impede the water flow, whether it does by culvert or some kind of a different road or some other?
Right, they'll need to put some kind of drainage in there, either subsurface or surface drainage, to allow that water to come down from the northwest, so we can at least get to the north-south ditch that goes down to East Cutbank Creek.
All right, thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay. And do you have any further witnesses?
No, I do not.
All right. I suppose we will move to Mr. Bender.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. We will call Shauna Boney. And Shauna, did I pronounce your name correctly?
No, it's Bonini.
Okay, sorry about that.
All right. Ms. Bonini, do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I will.
Shauna, state your full name for the record, please.
Shauna Bonini.
And Shauna, by whom are you employed?
I'm employed by White Rock Oil and Gas.
In what capacity?
I am a production operations engineer for White Rock.
And in that capacity, have you testified before the commission previously?
I have.
And you've had your qualifications accepted as that of an expert?
I have.
I'd offer the further testimony of this witness that of an expert.
Will be admitted as that of an expert.
Shauna, let's turn to the packet of exhibits that I've distributed to the commission staff, and let's skip the cover page, and let's go to what's been previously marked as Exhibit 1. And what I'd like you to do is identify Exhibit 1 and then briefly discuss what's contained on that exhibit.
So Exhibit 1 is just a highlighted view of the area. So the yellow circle is indicating that Bechtel 2 wells, and you can see that, you know, there are quite a few wells in this area that have been plugged and abandoned, and then you can see the wells to the east of this, the B2 that are currently productive.
Okay, and I know you're probably going to get into this in a little further detail, but as we're looking at this particular exhibit, this is Madison production, is that correct?
That's correct. All of those wells are Madison Pool.
Okay.
Madison Pool.
Okay, and production from the Madison Pool, are there different porosity stringers that your company is penetrating there? For example, is there Midale production and also Sherwood production?
So most of that is the Sherwood zone, and to the east of that, the wells have been have had better production than the B2 wells, which I will talk about later as far as some of my reasons that might be the case.
Okay, then let's go to Exhibit 2. Tell me what Exhibit 2 is, Shauna.
So Exhibit 2 is just a little bit closer in, so just wanted to highlight the Bechtel B2 well, and then you can see the well, the facility, the central tank battery for the B2 was directly south where the Bechtel B1 well location was.
Right, and then let's go to Exhibit 3. Tell me what Exhibit 3 is.
So Exhibit 3 is a Google Earth image to demonstrate the impact of the B2 well. So the B1 has already been plug and abandoned, and so the B2 well has about 10,000 square feet of road that leads to a 6,000 square foot pad that only holds a pumping unit. So it's a fairly small location, and from my understanding, I have not seen any spills around that well site that was demonstrated, and I feel like the Google Earth image shows the farmland that surrounds the B2 well.
And is it your understanding that the farmland around the Bechtel B2 that is cropland, or is it pasture?
From my understanding, it's cropland, but I would definitely, Gary knows his land better than I do for sure.
Okay, and you kind of covered this a little bit quickly, but The land associated with the pumping unit, which looks like that's all there is on the Beckettall B2, what have you calculated to be that in terms of square feet?
So total square feet for just the B2 and the road leading to the B2 is about 16,000 square feet.
Okay, and can you split that up for me? How much is the pad and how much is the road?
About 6,000 for the pad, and that's pretty generous. I used quite a bit of an area around that pad and also around the road. So 6,000 for the pad and 10,000 square feet for the road.
Okay. My notes reflect 3,500 feet for the road, or is that the road over to the battery?
So just to the south, I was also wanted to just understand what the impact of the facility was
Okay.
to the B2, but the B1 has been abandoned, and basically, from my understanding, it is being reclaimed or going to be reclaimed. Sorry, my understanding is going to be reclaimed. But that is some more land that will be restored that won't be impacted by the B2.
Well, if you restore the B2, what will you use for a tank battery for the, if you restore the B1, what will you use as a tank battery for the B2? Have you given that any consideration?
So the C1 is still a producing well for White Rock, and so the plan would be to look at bringing production over to the C1 battery.
Did you say C1?
C1, yes. In that Google Earth image, it is right across the street, the main road from the B2.
Okay. So by moving the tank battery from the B1 to the C1, and you said, I believe, that the B1, that well is plugged and abandoned, then you'd be able to eliminate that site completely. Is that correct?
You know, I cannot speak specifically on that site, but we do not need that facility to produce the B2.
Okay. Let's go to exhibit.
Can I add anything in here?
No, you've had your opportunity to talk. If your lawyer wants to
sorry.
call you
Yeah,
as a witness again, you can. Let's go to the next exhibit, Exhibit 4. Can you tell me what Exhibit 4 is?
So Exhibit 4 is the production of this well, which Gary already highlighted that it last produced in 1998. And from what I can gather from this well and the history, that there has been nothing done on this well of significant consequence. Like there's not been any stimulation, there hasn't been really any workovers done. It's been very minimal work done on this well site, which is unfortunate because right across the street, the C1 has actually been a good Madison producer. And we'll look at that further on, but I don't see any reason why it couldn't also reevaluate the B2 to see if we can get the same production that is currently existing from the C1 well.
Okay, now there's been some testimony that this well has been shut in since 1998. How long has White Rock owned and operated the B2 well?
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't remember the exact year. I want to say it's 2015, but I'll need to verify that information. I'm sorry.
But certainly not back to 1998, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and the well was...
Sorry, I just real quick. So May 1st, 2015 is when the transfer of ownership from Whiting to White Rock occurred.
Okay. And there was some testimony as well about a smell of H2S in the area. The well is TA'd, is that correct?
That is correct, and there has been, at least as recent as 2017 when the MIP was done, to 1,000 PSI, and I did not see any notation of any issues that surfaced with this well. It did successfully pass its MIP in 2017 with an NDIC inspector as a witness.
Okay. Let's go to the next exhibit, which I assume when you discuss that, it's going to help us understand what plans White Rock has for this particular well. So let's go to Exhibit 5. I'm going to have you identify Exhibit 5 and then briefly discuss what's contained upon it.
So it is just highlighting, again, the TA status of this well. There's been a retainer set at 4,100 feet to isolate the current producing intervals. There were a couple different attempts to produce this well from a deeper zone in the Madison, and then the upper Madison, middle Madison zone was completed this Sherwood. There was a DSP done when the well was drilled in 1988 that indicated that there were some Midale potential, and it's just one of those things that before abandoning this well, and since so many wells have been P&A'd in this area, it just would be good to evaluate this one last zone prior to plugging and abandoning the well. If it's not productive, so again, we have cement through this section, we can perforate the Midale, which is above the current perforations, it's shallower than the current perforations. But we have an impact wellbore that we could perforate. Haven't seen any indication, like I said, because of the passing MIT that there would be any other issues. And again, while we were evaluating that Midale, if it was not productive, and we would P&A the well at that time.
Now, the evaluating the Midale and possibly getting some production out of the Midale, is that wild speculation on the part of White Rock, or do you have some other wells in the area that indicate that the Midale may be a possibility as a candidate for recompletion of this well?
So I haven't seen anything specific on the Midale. There's just various perforated zones from the Madison in this area. I'm unsure. However, the DSP on this particular well did have oil to surface. It may be quite wet, but again, I would like to evaluate that prior to plugging the well.
Now, in addition to evaluating the Midale, if the commission allows you to do such, the Sherwood, I mean, this well was shut in for some reason, presumably low production or depletion in the Sherwood. Does the Sherwood still have some potential if you were to do some work in the Sherwood?
Absolutely. This well has never, from my records, so we do have limited records, but from my records and looking at the production, there was not any stimulation done in this well, very minimal downhole repairs. So, there has been very successful acid jobs performed in this area. The well across the street, C1, many years ago was acidized and did see an uptick in production. So I would hate to discount this well with low production when nothing has ever been done to try to stimulate this well, especially when just across the street there is has been a very productive Madison producer, as well as just a little bit southeast of this well and a little bit more southeast of this well. There's been other very good wells that White Rock currently operates that are producing. So I don't see any reason why this well also could not be a successful producer that would pay out.
So if the commission allows what White Rock is requesting here, there's a possibility that it will benefit the mineral owners in and under the B2 well, including Mr. Beckedahl, as well as potentially other mineral owners in the area if it's successful. Is that correct?
That is my hope, and if it's not successful, then we would plug and abandon while we were doing the work to recomplete it.
Okay, let's go to the next exhibit, Exhibit 6. Can you tell me what Exhibit 6 is?
So Exhibit 6 is just a log from this particular well. I did not have a really good cross-section from the different wells in this area just because the log records were intermittent on some of these wells. But this does show the Beckedahl B2 and where the DSP was done back in 1988. And again, it had potential oil production. There was an oil show in the DSP. So I would like to at least evaluate that zone just to verify that it's not productive prior to plugging the well.
Okay, and there was some testimony by Mr. Beckedahl about the road that goes into one of these sites and it blocking the natural flow of drainage. Do you have any reaction or comments with respect to installing a culvert under that road so that if there is a drainage problem, it could be resolved?
I will. One of my action item from this meeting is to reach out to Gary specifically, and I will go out there and verify what the issues are on this road. This is the first that I've heard of this, and I am extremely sorry for Gary's hardship, and we'll reach out to him straight away. If it turns out that a culvert is needed, then we would definitely can address that at the time when we're bringing the well production from the B2 over to the C1 battery, because we will need to to install a new line to be able to do that. But that is, again, one of the things to evaluate in the process of reactivating the B2.
And Mr. Beckedel made a number of comments and allegations with respect to seeking damages from White Rock. Are you aware of any of those demands that Mr. Beckedel has made?
No, I'm so sorry, but I am not privy to everything, and that's why, again, an action item for me, I will make sure Gary has my specific contact information. I am the engineer for this area, and I would make sure that I address any concerns that he has on that in the future.
Okay, let's
And
go.
again, I'm very sorry for that.
Okay, let's go to Exhibit 7. You have it labeled as Plan Forward. Can you briefly discuss what's contained on that exhibit?
So the idea was just to receive just a 1-year TA extension, and during our 1 year, 365 days from now extension would be to evaluate the Mydale recompletion and stimulate the Sherwood zone and verify if it's commercial. If it is commercial, great, we would produce the well as is. And if it's marginal economic or, again, too wet, causing other issues, or if it's determined that, again, this is not a good situation to bring this line, a production line, over to the C1 battery, then we would plug and abandon it in 2023.
Okay.
Within the 1 year extension is what I'm saying.
And if for some reason between now and early 2023, White Rock decided not to go in and recomplete in the Madison and stimulate the Sherwood, would White Rock have any objection if the commission were to include a provision in the order that would require the well to be plugged and abandoned in 2023 if that work isn't done prior to that time?
Absolutely not. We would plug and abandon the well at that time. We have been working really hard to try to plug and abandon wells that are not producing.
Okay. Now, while Mr. Beckedel didn't suggest this, I could see where he might suggest this, so let me have you respond to this. Why not just plug the Beckedel B2, and if you believe that the Mydale has some potential production and you might be able to get more production out of the Sherwood as well, plug the well, and in 2023 just drill another one. What's your response to that?
Well, drilling a well is significantly more costly than recompleting a well that currently has casing and surface facilities in place to produce it. So, I just feel like it's not a cost-effective way to produce the Mydale. There's not enough reserves there to do that. However, if you can recomplete the well, you can use the existing casing and the existing wellbore to continue to make money on this site, then to me that's the best for everyone involved and for everyone who's wanting to receive compensation from this well.
So if the commission were to require this well to be plugged and abandoned, it's a likely scenario that those potential reserves that you believe exist yet in the Mydale and the Sherwood, those are never ever going to be recovered. Is that a fair statement?
Well, I should say, I can't say it's never ever, but I can tell you that White Rock hasn't drilled wells in this area, and so it would be one of the things that White Rock would not pursue that for the foreseeable future.
So you could probably say never, but never ever, huh?
I don't know if I'd say never.
Yeah,
I would say you can never say never, but I would say perhaps on White Rock's perspective, if this well is plug and abandoned, we would not re-drill a well in this area. We would choose another area to re-drill.
And if that's the case, will that result in waste?
Potentially. I mean, right now we have, the Sherwood and the Mydale that could be prospective. And, with just a little bit of an acid, this well might be producing 10 barrels a day like the well right across the street is. So I don't see anything that indicates that this well does not have the potential to produce oil and gas like the well right across the street and down the road, which is the C2.
I believe there's an objection, Mr. Steinberg.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that.
The question being asked is speculative.
Yeah.
Any
No,
response?
I disagree. I mean, she's an expert. She's been qualified as an expert, and I think she can offer opinions with respect to what she believes would result if this well is required to be plugged and abandoned, that another well wouldn't be drilled. So I think it's proper expert testimony. It's not speculation.
The objection is noted and overruled. You're allowed to continue that line of questioning.
I believe that's all the questions I have of this witness, Mr. Examiner. We would offer exhibits 1 through 7.
The exhibits are admitted. Mr. Steinberger, do you have any questions for this witness?
I do, Mr. Examiner. Ma'am, when you testified about plugged and abandoned, does that mean plugged and abandoned, and that their well would be removed, the road would be removed, and the land would be restored? Is that what you mean by plugged and abandoned?
I'm sorry. Yes, sir. In my normally when I use the term plug and abandon, it means that the location is reclaimed, and you receive P&A approval, which does require the reclamation of the area.
Okay, and Mr. Beckedahl testified that there was a saltwater blowout in this particular well. Are you aware of any of those issues?
I am not aware of those issues, and I looked through some of the records, and I didn't see anything, at least in White Rock's history, that has indicated that there was a blowout. It might be one of the things that's in Whiting's records, but I don't have any records to indicate that occurred.
So you don't discount that that could be the actual case, do you?
You know, I have nothing to say it is or is not at this time. I don't have anything to refute or support that claim.
All right, thank you. I have no further questions.
Okay. Commission staff, any questions?
Shauna, this is Bruce Hicks. That the Beckedahl 2 well, it produced like 8,000 barrels of oil, and do you know how much water?
I know that when it was shut in, it was at, sorry, my notes on that. So when it was shut in, it was making 70 barrels of water a day and 2 barrels of oil in 1998, in February of 98.
Okay, I pulled up the production on it. It's 82.74 oil and a little over 180,000 barrels of water. And in the Sherwood area, or the Sherwood zone, is that a water drive reservoir?
You know, I know that the Madison is often a water drive. I have not studied that in a specific area, but I know to the east that it is a water drive.
Okay, have you studied the Sherwood field at all?
I have just looked at it in this particular case.
Okay, I think it's widely known that the Sherwood zone, the Sherwood field, has a very strong water drive in it. If that were to be the case, is it possible that this area here has watered out due to production in the area, where you've got additional water migrating into this area?
That is potential. That is possible, yes.
And are you aware of any other Midale production in this field?
I am not.
The drill stem test that you talked about, can you tell us the recoveries on it?
Sure.
For the Midale that you indicated that showed potential.
So, sorry, if I could pull that up. So it's on the wellbore diagram itself. I indicated that from in the notes of the well, the upper Sherwood, let's see, the Mydale from 4060 to 4086, 90 feet of slightly oil and gas cut mud, 445 feet of slightly oil cut water.
Okay, and in your estimation, do you think that would be a good zone, just in your experience? That would be a good zone to complete in?
It would probably be a poor zone.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that word.
Yes, it would probably be a poorer zone. It would not be a great zone to complete.
Thank you.
And the flow line going down to the Beckedal number 1 well, has that been purged?
I am not sure about that line.
Okay.
I would have to ask our field guys if that has been done. I know that there's been some work done to the south on plugging the B1 well, and I'm unsure on the status of that line.
Did White Rock plug the Beckedal B1?
No, we did not.
Okay. And have you estimated the cost of running a new flow line over to the C1?
I have not estimated that, no.
We approved a temporarily abandonment extension on this well. I'm going to pull it up here. It was
It was a 1 year, but we said we would do something within 2 years. Is that, I think, the last?
yes, the temporarily abandonment that you were approved indicated that you would be evaluating the well within 2 years and do something with it, and that would have expired this month. So have you started any type of evaluation on the well?
I started it for this hearing. I did not do anything before that. I apologize for that.
And White Rock has had the well for nearly 7 years. We've had fairly good oil prices throughout that time period. There's been some downtimes. Why hasn't White Rock looked at the evaluation on it?
There were some other projects at the time that had higher priority, and so this just wasn't in the higher priority list.
But if you've written down on a sundry notice you're going to do an evaluation, why wouldn't you honor that?
That is a fail, and I am sorry.
Have you got any estimated reserves on what you believe the Mydale would produce?
I haven't done those calculations at this time. It would be one of those things that I would probably try to acidize the Sherwood first and see if that has a greater production potential, and then add the Mydale as a possibility.
Have you reviewed the file to see why Whiting had not re-entered the well or recompleted the well or acidized it? Was there anything in the well file?
There was not anything in the well file indicating why they wouldn't have done that.
Just a second, I want to make sure we're talking about the right well file. Bruce, I assume you're talking about the Industrial Commission well file?
Any well files. I
Okay.
mean, sometimes you get complete records from companies when you buy wells, and I would hope that they would have looked at all well files that they had, plus anything that we had on record.
Correct. There wasn't anything in the well file in either case, in NDIC or in Whiting's files, that indicate why they didn't try to re-enter this well. Probably other than economics in this area, they're fairly marginal.
Okay, thank you.
Shauna, there was a fair bit of discussion about the well across the road, the Bechdel C1, and its response to work. Can you provide an exhibit in this case that would depict what zone that well is completed in, what its production was before and after, whatever work or stimulations were done to that well?
Sure.
Thank you.
It has been quite a few years, but I will definitely put that together for you.
Okay, thank you.
Looking at the production on the C1 and C2, it looks like the exact same amount of oil produced for both of the wells all the way back to May of 2018. Are you able to explain why the exact same amount of oil was produced out of both wells since then?
I cannot explain that other than it has a shared battery, and I can't specifically say how that oil is allocated, but it does have a shared battery, and I'm unsure on how each well is tested, or it might just be, I can't speculate on exactly how the production is allocated, but I do know it's a shared battery.
Is that something you can look into and provide a response on?
Yes, I can.
Great, thanks.
Any further questions from commission staff?
Yeah, Sean, what is the estimated cost to recomplete this well and install production facilities?
We wouldn't install production facilities. We would run a line from this well across the street. Based on other recompletions that we've done, it would probably be in the $40,000 to $50,000 range.
What kind of daily oil production would you need to make this recompletion economic?
Probably over 10 barrels a day. But I would need to run those numbers if you would like a specific number.
This is a question for Shauna or for Lawrence. Do you have any objection to making the well files of the B1 and the C1 part of the record?
No objection.
Actually, we would want the B2.
Or B2, excuse me.
So B,
B1 and B2.
C.
Not the C?
The C1, the well across the road.
Well, the C1 then too.
Yeah.
I think you would want the B1 and B2 because they were combined in the same central tank battery. So we would want the B1, the B2, and the C1.
Not the C2.
Or excuse me, the C2, not the C1. I think we've got that straight now.
B1,
Wait,
B2, and
just
C2.
so we're-
Is that correct?
Just so we're clear, so the B2 is this well that we're talking about in the hearing. C1 is right across the street. C2 would be directly south of the C1.
Yeah, the triad up in this area.
Yes. All right, just want to make sure everybody's clear as our well, or look at the second page of the exhibit.
Shauna, this is Bruce again. So looking at Exhibit 3, the B2 well is the temporarily abandoned well we're talking about. We want that well file. You indicated that production used to go down to the B1 battery, so we would want that well file incorporated. And you indicated that the B2 flow line would go east over to the C1 battery, correct?
Correct. It would be something we would evaluate. Yes.
But if you were to run a new flow line, you indicated the B2 flow line would be installed over to the C1 battery straight east of it, right?
Correct.
So
Yes.
I believe those are the three wells that we would want well files
Okay.
incorporated.
Got it.
If I may interject, hearing officers, since there was testimony that the well production in the C1 and the C2 exactly matched each other, I believe that might be more helpful to the commission if the record sought were for the B1, the B2, the C1, and the C2, all four of them.
Is there any objection to including all four? I think we'll admit all 4 of them then, yeah.
John, can I speak to you?
No, you can't.
Okay.
Sorry.
Are there any further questions for commission staff for this witness?
I just have one question, and I guess John or Gary could either one answer it, but I'm wondering what their response is to White Rock's response that they want 1 more year to evaluate and either complete the well, recomplete it, or plug it. What's your response to that?
Gary, would you please respond to that?
I don't see why it could make any difference why they would have an extra year when they haven't done it in 25 years or the 7 years that they've had the well. If they were looking to make this into an oil well, they would have already done it. But the chances of recovery out of there, to me, I'm not the expert like the lady we're talking here, because the well to the west of that in the same quarter never produced anything, and the one to the west and south of there makes about a barrel a day, and if she's got to have 10 barrels of production to make it feasible to redo this, it isn't a location that's possible. So why extend it out another year?
Anything further? Okay. Mr. Bender, do you have any redirect or witness?
No redirect.
And do you have any further witnesses that were?
No further witnesses. And I believe I've offered the exhibits.
Yep, they've been admitted. So, with that, I suppose, Mr. Steinberger, it is your application. Do you have any final remarks or any comments you would like to make?
I made my comments in my opening statement, and I would reconfirm everything that Gary said at the conclusion that they've had their chance. I mean, it's been 23 years, nothing has happened. They had an application 2 years ago. They said they were going to do something that's in the record and haven't. And as I stated in the beginning, I think that much of the position of White Rock is not in good faith.
Okay. And anything further in this matter?
No, I do not.
That will conclude the hearing for case number 2914. Oh yeah, I believe there was a request to leave the record open for some supplements.
Yeah, well, I don't have a calendar in front of me. Is there some appropriate time, maybe early February or the first full week in February, that Friday or something like that?
Sure. So, yeah, it looks like the 1st of February is a Tuesday.
Okay.
Then that Friday would be the 4th.
Today is the 19th. Yeah, that should be sufficient.
Okay.
So February 4th, record remain open, is that correct?
Yep. So the record will remain open until February 4th.
And Lawrence, will you copy the other party?
Yes.
The applicant? Thank you.
Well, you're talking about any documents I file?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. And that will conclude the hearing for case number 29142.
Thank you, everyone.
Moving on, we will hear case number 29143, application of Hess-Bakken Investments 2 LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Tioga Bakken Pool to establish an overlapping 2560 acre spacing unit described as sections 25, 26, 35, and 36, Township 158 North, Range 95 West, Williams County, North Dakota, and authorize 1 horizontal well to be drilled on such unit and for such other relief as may be appropriate. Would all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of Hess-Bakken Investments 2 LLC. I have 3 witnesses appearing telephonically in this case: Jordan Payne, Amanda Johnston, and Aisha Keshimir, and I'll call them now.
Welcome to the audio conferencing center. Please enter a conference ID followed by pound. If you're the meeting organizer, press star now.
Jordan, are you guys there?
After the tone, please record your name and then press pound.
Wade Man.
You are now joining the meeting.
Jordan, can you hear me?
You are now joining the meeting.
Jordan, you there?
We are.
All right, we're live.
All right, Mr. Payne, I'm going to swear you in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Jordan, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
My name is Jordan Payne. I'm employed by Hess Corporation as a senior landman. Our work address is 1501 McKinney Street, Houston, Texas, 77010.
Jordan, have you previously testified before this commission?
Yes, I have.
And have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes.
And you're familiar with the land issues underlying the proposed spacing unit?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I'd move the testimony of Mr. Payne be received as that of an expert in this case.
It will be received as expert testimony.
And Jordan, let's start with exhibit number 1, if you can just identify the proposed spacing unit for us.
Yes, exhibit number 1 is a location map showing the existing 1280 DSUs in sections 25, 26, 35, and 36, and the proposed overlapping 2560 DSU is outlined in green.
Okay. And let's move on to exhibit 2. Can you take us through your working interest?
Yes, exhibit 2 shows the interest breakdown of ownership for the two respective DSUs. For the TI Stenbeck DSU in sections 25 and 26, Hess owns an approximate 92% working interest, and in the TI State DSU in sections 35 and 36, Hess owns 100% working interest. So combined for the overlapping 2560 DSU, Hess would own an approximate 96% working interest.
Okay. I have no further questions for Mr. Payne. I'd offer the land exhibits 1 and 2.
The exhibits are admitted. And moving on. Blue second.
I have a,
Sure.
Jordan, on exhibit 2, for the TI State space unit, I assume the others percentage should be 0%?
That's a good point. Sorry, we will correct that exhibit.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? And I'm sorry, I think I missed your second one. It says second witness. Was it Ms. Johnston?
Correct.
Ms. Johnston, are you on the line?
I am.
I'm going to go ahead and swear you in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you are about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Amanda, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Yes. My name is Amanda Johnston. I'm currently employed as an operations geologist for Hess Corporation, located at 1501 McKinney Street, Houston, Texas, 77010.
And Amanda, have you previously testified before this commission?
I have.
And have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes.
Okay, I'd move the testimony of Ms. Johnston be received as that of an expert in this case.
It will be received as expert testimony.
Okay, and Amanda, can you take us through your exhibit 3, the structure map?
Yes. Exhibit 3 shows the location of the existing DSUs in blue and the requested 2560 DSU in green. This is a top middle Bakken structure map. And it's presented with a 50-foot contour interval showing that the formation is dipping to the south. Line A to A prime represents the location of wells used in the cross-section in Exhibit 4.
Okay. And let's move on to Exhibit 4. Take us through that cross-section.
So Exhibit 4 is the stratigraphic cross-section flattened on the top of the Bakken, showing that the targeted formations are present and continuous throughout the area.
Okay, and I have no further questions for Ms. Johnston. I'd offer Exhibits 3 and 4.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none, we will move on to your third witness. I believe that is Ms. Keshemir.
Correct.
Ms. Keshemir, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Aisha, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Sure. My name is Aisha Kashmir, employed by Hess Corporation as a reservoir engineer, located at 1501 McKinney Street, Houston, Texas 77010.
And Aisha, have you previously testified before this commission?
Yes, I have.
And have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert? Aisha, have you previously had your qualifications received as an expert in the previous cases?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I have.
And I'd move the testimony of Ms. Keshemir be received as that of an expert in this case.
It will be received as expert testimony.
And Aisha, let's start with exhibit number 5. Can you describe your proposed plan of development on this proposed 2560?
Sure. Exhibit 5 shows the proposed 2560 development for Section 2526 and Section 3536. The bold dashed line is the proposed well, and it will be drilled in the middle Bakken formation from the same pad as the other infill wells.
Okay. Then let's move on to exhibit number 6. Can you summarize the reservoir data and economics for us?
Sure. Exhibit 6 is showing an economic summary for a single middle Bakken well in Tioga area. The expected EUR is around 520,000 barrels, standard barrels with around 2% recovery factor. Economics were ran at $57 WTI flat and 100% working interest. The expected NPV is around $6 million with a 43% rate of return.
Okay. And Aisha, in your opinion, if the 2560 is approved and you develop as you've indicated, is that going to prevent waste and protect relative rights?
Correct, yes.
Okay. I have no further questions. I'd offer exhibits 5 and 6 and the gas capture plan affidavit.
Any objections? The exhibits are admitted. Any questions from commission staff? Seeing none. Anything further here, Mr. Mann?
No, Mr. Examiner, thank you.
That will conclude the hearing for case number 29143. The time is about 10:08. I suppose we can take a little break here, come back here at 10:15. And we are back on the record. Next, we will look at case number 29144, application of Hesbachen Investments 2 LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Stanley and/or Rossbachen pools to establish an overlapping 2560 acre spacing unit described as sections 33 and 34, Township 156 North, Range 91 West, and sections 3 and 4, Township 155 North, Range 91 West, Montreal County, North Dakota, and authorize one horizontal well to be drilled on such unit and for such other relief as may be appropriate. This case is continued to February. Next on the docket is case number 29145, application of Hesbachen Investments 2 LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Beaver Lodge Bakken Pool to establish an overlapping 2560 acre spacing unit described as sections 5, 6, 7, and 8, Township 155 North, Range 95 West, Williams County, ND, and authorize one horizontal well to be drilled on such unit and for such other relief as may be appropriate. This case is continued to February. Next on the docket is case number 29146, application of Oasis Petroleum North America LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Rosebud and/or Hardscrabble Bakken pools to establish two overlapping 3,200 acre spacing units described as all of sections 2 and 3, the east half of section 4, Township 153 North, Range 102 West, and the east half of section 33, and all of sections 34 and 35, Township 154 North, Range 102 West, and all of sections 2, 3, 10, 11, and the east half of sections 4 and 9, Township 153 North, Range 102 West, Williams County, North Dakota, and authorize one horizontal well to be drilled on each such unit and for such other relief as may be appropriate. Would all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of Oasis Petroleum North America, LLC. And, Mr. Examiner, I'm also appearing on behalf of Oasis in the next, I guess, 6 cases. But this case, 29146, through case number 29150, the cases all sort of tie together and relate to development in, one particular kind of block or contiguous area. And for purposes of hearing, I guess I would request that we be allowed to consolidate for purposes of hearing. It just seems like it's makes more sense so the Commission can get the full picture on development and what we're looking at with respect to respacing these lands. So, and then in addition, I would request that we would take case number 29147, kind of the exhibits in that case first. It's just.
Okay. Are there any objections to consolidating those cases?
Excuse me, Mr. Examiner, Lawrence Vander, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, appearing in case 29146 on behalf of Grayson Mill. We have no objection to the consolidation of cases, nor do we have any objection to taking case 29147 first.
Okay.
And so, Mr. Examiner, 29151 is also an Oasis case, but that's in a different area, and I'll have a different landman, so I think we can hear that one separately after these cases.
Okay, that's good. And I will read those. The cases will be consolidated for the record, and I will read them into the record. So, consolidated with case 29146 will be case number 29147, application of Oasis Petroleum North America LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Rosebud Bakken Pool to establish a 1,600 acre spacing unit described as all of sections 2 and 3 and the east half of section 4, Township 153 North, Range 102 West, Williams County, North Dakota, and authorize 6 horizontal wells to be drilled on such unit and for such other relief as may be appropriate. Case number 29148, application of Oasis Petroleum North America LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Rosebud and/or Trenton Bakken pools to establish a 2880 acre spacing unit described as all of sections 10, 15, and 22, and the east half of sections 9, 16, and 21, Township 153 North, Range 102 West, Williams and McKenzie Counties, North Dakota, and authorize 10 horizontal wells to be drilled on such unit and for such other relief as may be appropriate. Case number 29149, application of Oasis Petroleum North America LLC for an order amending the applicable pools for the Rosebud, Hardscrabble, and/or Trenton Bakken pools to establish a 3840 acre spacing unit described as all of sections 10, 11, 14, 15, 22, and 23, Township 153 North, Range 102 West, Williams and McKenzie Counties, North Dakota, and authorize one horizontal well to be drilled on such unit and for such other relief as may be appropriate. And case number 29150, application of Oasis Petroleum North America LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Trenton Bakken Pool to establish a 640 acre spacing unit described as the west half of sections 16 and 21, Township 153 North, Range 102 West, Williams County, ND, and authorize 3 horizontal wells to be drilled on such unit and for such other relief as may be appropriate. And we will begin, as requested, with case number 29147.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. I don't think I gave you my witnesses. I'm going to have Greg Sandberg, Nathan Gableman, and Mike Brown. And Mr. Sandberg will be the first witness.
Okay, and Mr. Sandberg, are you on the phone?
I am.
Okay. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Greg, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Greg Sandberg. I am a landman for Oasis Petroleum, address 1001 Fannin, Suite 1500, Houston, Texas 77002.
Greg, have you previously testified before this commission?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes, they were.
Okay, and you're familiar with the land underlying all of these proposed spacing units?
Yes, I am.
Okay. I'd move the testimony of Mr. Sandberg be received as that of an expert in these cases.
It will be received as expert testimony.
And Greg, starting with Exhibit L1, I guess before we get into the specifics of the land for each of these spacing units, can you sort of walk us through this overview map and kind of highlight or explain for the commission what we're looking to accomplish with respect to the respacing and sort of why we're looking to do what we're asking for in each of these 5 cases?
Absolutely. So as you can see in Exhibit L1, we're depicting the current spacing as it exists today in the top map and the requested spacing in the bottom map. Highlighted through both of these maps and shown on the right side is our flood concern area. And the general overview of our strategy in this area was to maximize long lateral development and avoid those flood-prone areas that you can see on the map. One thing to note is that in the hearing today, we are not addressing the 2 laydown 1920s in the southeast corner of this map, but we do plan to do those in the future.
Sure. Okay. Then let's move on to Exhibit L2. If you can identify, I guess, the first proposed spacing unit that we're looking at, that's 1600.
Sure, this is your locator map for Township 153, Range 102. It's the east half of Section 4 and all of Sections 2 and 3 for a 1,600-acre spacing unit.
Okay. And then let's move on to Exhibit L3. Can you take us through what your working interest in that proposed unit would be?
Sure, this depicts that proposed 1,600-acre unit. Our working interest in that unit would be 47.9% interest.
Okay. And then let's move on to the next exhibit. If you can take us through the breakdown of what your ownership is in each of those existing units that make up this proposed 1,600.
Sure, as depicted in that 640-acre DSU there in 153-102 Section 2, Oasis does not own any working interest. In the DSU of 153-102 Sections 3 and 10, we own 72.46% working interest. And in the DSU in 153-102 Sections 4 and 9, we own 90.61% working interest.
Okay. And Mr. Examiner, that's all the questions I have for Mr. Sandberg in this case, and I'd offer L1 through L4 in this case.
Are there any objections? The exhibits are admitted. Any questions from commission staff?
Just a few. I'm maybe just a little confused here. Perhaps the witness can help me understand. I'm sorry. I'm a little confused at looking at your exhibit L1, so perhaps you can help me understand. My understanding is the lower part of this exhibit depicts all the proposed changes that you want in 146, 147, 148, et cetera. Is that correct?
That is correct. The maps do not depict the section line wells, which are going to be case 29146, 29149. Those are not depicted in here.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question.
Any further questions?
Greg, on your exhibit L4, section 2, you indicate you don't have any working interest in there. There is a Continental Resources well in that space unit. Have you reached out to Continental about this application?
We have. We've had discussions with them for a while and haven't come to a mutual agreement on any other options. It doesn't seem like they have issues with it and haven't protested in this case. But yes, we have worked with them in the past and we'll continue to work with them.
So they didn't indicate that they were going to object to this case?
That's correct. They did not indicate that they were going to object to it.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions?
Greg, this is Lynn Helms. On your exhibit L4, you gave us the working interest breakdown for the existing spacing units. I would like a little more granular breakdown because the proposed spacing unit is 2, 3 in the east half of 4. What is Oasis's ownership in section 3?
I would have to pull that separately. The way we've calculated working interest in this case is based on the underlying 1280 pooling, 1280 and 640 pooling, and their contributions to the resulting 1600 spacing.
Well, if you could provide your ownership in 3 and also the east half of 4, please. And then you don't have a majority in your proposed spacing unit, so are you working with others on operatorship?
So we operate section 3 and 10 and 4 and 9, and Continental operates section 2 at this point. So they're the other operator in this equation.
Thank you.
Any further? Okay. Moving on to your second witness, Mr. Gableman, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
You can go ahead and swear you in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you are about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Nathan, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Yes, I'm Nathan Galen. I'm employed by Oasis Petroleum as a geologist. The address is 1001 Fannin, Suite 1500 in Houston, Texas, zip code 77002.
And Nathan, have you previously testified before this commission?
Yes.
And have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and you're familiar with the geology underlying these proposed spacing units?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'd move the testimony of Mr. Gableman be received as that of an expert in this case.
It will be received as expert testimony.
And Nathan, let's start with G1. Can you describe the Upper Bakken structure underlying the proposed 1600?
Yes, G1 shows the Upper Bakken Shale structure map with a 20-foot contour interval. It also highlights the DSU in question outlined in blue with the Martin FT1 type log illustrated in the yellow circle, showing the dip direction to the east-southeast of the map.
Okay, let's move on to G2, the ISOPAC map.
This G2 is the isopac of the Middle Bakken. It's on a 2-foot contour interval, also showing the DSU in question and the highlighted type log marked FT1 to the west there.
Okay. And let's move on to G3, the type log.
Yes. G3 is the type log of the Martin FT1 with the gamma ray on the left, followed by the resistivity in the middle and the porosity log on the right.
Okay. I have no further questions for Mr. Gableman. I'd offer G1 through G3.
Are there any objections?
No objection and no questions.
Exhibits are admitted. Any questions from commission staff? Seeing none, we'll move on to your third witness. Mr. Brown, are you on the line?
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Do.
Mike, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Yes, my name is Mike Brown. I'm a development engineer with Oasis Petroleum. Address is 1001 Fannin Street, Suite 1500, Houston, Texas, 77002.
And Mike, have you previously testified before this commission?
Yes, I have.
And have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes, they were.
Okay. And you put together some engineering exhibits for these hearings?
Yes.
Okay. I'd move the testimony of Mr. Brown be received as that of an expert in these cases.
It will be received as expert testimony.
And Mike, let's start with Exhibit E1, maybe sort of piggybacking on what Greg had discussed. If you can just kind of take us through this map and sort of explain what you're looking at with respect to development in this area.
Yes, so this is, like Wade mentioned, this is a similar map, just a little more zoomed in to what Greg previously showed. And what you can see here is the flooding risk that Greg had previously highlighted adjacent to the river. And this respacing, again, as he had mentioned, maximizes longer laterals by spacing out some 3-mile laterals to the south of the proposed 1600 spacing unit, and then the 1600 spacing unit being a 2.5-mile DSU. So we're maximizing lateral length, and also, as you can see with the surface hole locations, staying off of the flooding risk area.
Okay. Then let's move on to the, I guess, the particular proposed spacing unit that we're talking about in this case, the 1600. Can you take us through your development plans for that proposed unit on E2?
Yes, so E2 is depicting 6 middle Bakken well bores, and shown previously on the previous slide, surface hole location we're planning to have on the west side. Setbacks 150 foot east-west off of the lines, and then 500 foot north-south setbacks.
Okay. And then let's move on to Exhibit E3, if you can take us through the reservoir data and economics.
Yeah, so E3 is showing the reservoir properties, and well EUR, we're estimated at 660 MBO at a $55 oil and $250 gas deck. This is shown to be economic with a undiscounted return on investment of 2.19.
And I don't have any further questions for Mr. Brown on this case, and I'd offer E1 through E3 in the gas capture plan affidavit.
Any objection?
No objection and no questions.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Mike, Oasis has an existing well drilled in 3 and 10 northwest, or north-south. What are your plans for that existing well that you're going to cross?
Our standard plans for this situation are re-steering the existing wells, verifying location within zone, and then drilling under and over, depending on the location of that well bore.
So you would continue producing that well?
That is correct, yes.
And then do you have any plans for that pad right on the edge of that flooding risk?
Pad on the edge of the flooding risk.
In section 10?
Section 10. That should be outside of any risk.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, the existing well down the center or near the center of sections 4 and 9, is that well east of the center line?
Yes, I calculated it roughly 174 foot east of the center line, and so we would be looking to roughly put our heels at about 200 foot from that. So heels would roughly be 375 foot east of center line, or 280 foot from the east line.
That well, is that a Middle Bakken or a Three Forks target?
Should be a middle Bakken.
And the other wells to the west of it, the 3 wells in the west half of 4 and 9, you've got one of them in red on your exhibit E1. What's the intent of that, and what are the targets of those 3 wells?
Yeah, so I can speak to that. The one in red, that one is currently not producing. We're working on updating the status filing with that, but our intention for that well is to be a pressure observation well. We have used that as an observation well in the past and intend to continue to do so. The 2 other wells there, I believe, are Middle Bakken and are producing, and we do intend to continue to produce those.
So no plans for Three Forks in the area then?
That is correct. It's Middle Bakken only development.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, this is Bruce Hicks. Are you planning on drilling from the east to the west then?
From the west to the east.
Okay. Where is your proposed pad, surface pad?
If I could refer to E1, it's roughly on that west side,
Where I guess it would be in the
east half of section 4,
just east of the center line.
Just to
We've not settled surface yet,
okay.
But we have scouted.
Just to the west of it, the 3 well pad that Rich talked about, that's your Martin pad, correct?
That is correct.
Doesn't appear that you're selling any gas since day one. Is it possible that you would also connect that site to gas capture?
Yes.
And what's the timing on drilling these wells?
We are looking at roughly mid-2023 for development in this area.
Thank you.
Mike, on your exhibit E3, in the center box, you have the number of wells listed as 5.
Yes, that should be 6. That is an error right there. The intended spacing is for 6 wells.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from commission staff? Okay. And Mr. Mann, I guess I don't know procedurally how we want to go forward.
Yeah,
if we want to do.
Mr. Examiner, I think if we can just kind of move on into the exhibits for each of the respective cases, just one at a time. So.
Sure.
Hey, Mr. Examiner, can I just start with the land witness on this one, or?
Yeah, all of them have been consolidated and they're still under oath.
Yep. So Greg, let's, we're looking now at case number 29146. That's where we're looking at the the overlapping 3200s relating to that 1600 that we just talked about. Can you identify those proposed 3200s on L1?
Absolutely. So Exhibit L1 shows the proposed section line, the 3,200 acre proposed spacing units. That'll be the section lines to the case we heard before. This includes the red box, which is Township 153, 102, east half of Section 4, all of Sections 2 and 3, and 153, 102, east half of Section 33, and all of Sections 34 and 35.
And Greg, you're aware that to the north that Grayson Mill operates a spacing unit, correct?
Correct.
And you're strictly looking at, this spacing is strictly for the lease line wells, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Let's move on to L2 then, if you can identify working interests in these proposed spacing units.
So the working interest in the proposed spacing units is 39.54% in the north section line and 52.25% in the south section line.
Okay. I have no further questions for Mr. Sandberg in this case, and I'd offer the land exhibits.
Any objection?
No objection, no questions.
The exhibits are admitted. Any questions from commission staff?
Greg, this is Bruce Hicks on L2. You're indicating that you do not have a 50% ownership in that spacing unit on the north side. Are you working with other working interest owners on operatorship?
We feel that we'll operate this. We have had discussions with Grayson Mills, and they are involved in this hearing.
Okay, thank you.
And no further questions. We will move on to your second witness.
Okay. And Nathan, why don't you go ahead and take us through the structure underlying the proposed spacing units we're talking about here. G1 first.
Yeah, C1 is pretty much the same map as shown in the previous exhibits, just with the updated DSU outline to show the 3200.
Sure. And then G2, the isopac map, similar as well?
Yep, same thing, just the updated DSU, same structure, or isopac.
And I presume G3, same type log?
Yep, same type log showing that Martin FT1.
And I have no further questions for Mr. Gableman relating to this case.
No questions.
All right. Are there any questions from commission staff? You may move on to your next witness.
And Mike, let's, I don't know that we really need to go through E1 again. We've kind of gone through that in your initial overview of what you're looking at for each of these cases. So let's move on to E2. And can you take us through your proposed development for these two proposed 3200s?
Yeah, so each of the 3,200 acre spacing units are spaced for a single well, Middle Bakken well bore, and we intend to develop at the same time as the 1,600 acre unit presented in case 29-147. Also from the west side of the proposed DSU.
Okay. Then let's move on then to E3, reservoir data and economics that you'd be looking at for these two section line wells.
Yes, this is the same economics shown with the previous case with the 660 MBO type curve for the 2.5 mile lateral. And again, economic at a 55 and 250 deck with an undiscounted ROI of 2.19.
And that's all the questions I have for Mr. Brown. In this case, I'd offer the engineering exhibits and the gas capture plan affidavit.
Any objections? The exhibits are admitted. And any questions from commission staff?
Mike, these two lease line wells, will they be drilled from that same pad you depicted in case 29147?
That is our current plan, yes.
Okay, thank you.
there are no further questions, I believe that's your last witness in that case, right?
That's correct, Mr. Examiner.
I guess we can move on to, yes, whichever one you prefer.
If we can just go on down to 29148, that 2880. And Greg, if you can identify, we're now on 29148, and if you can identify that proposed spacing unit for us, Exhibit L1.
Absolutely. Exhibit L1 shows that spacing unit in section 153-102, the east half of Section 9. The east half of Section 9, the east half of Section 16, and the east half of Section 21, as well as the entire section of Section 10, all of Section 15, and all of Section 22.
And then let's move on to L2. What's Oasis working interest in that proposed spacing unit?
Oasis working interest in that unit would be 63.01%.
And then let's move on to L3. I guess the breakdown of the your working interest in the underlying lands under the existing spacing.
Yeah, absolutely. So the 4 underlying 1280s are all Oasis-operated units. In sections 3 and 10 of 153-102, Oasis owns 72.46%. In sections 4 and 9, Oasis owns 90.61%. In sections 15 and 22, Oasis owns 54.06%. And in sections 16 and 21, Oasis owns 62.32%.
And I have no further questions for Mr. Sandberg. I'd offer the land exhibits in this case.
Any objections?
No objection.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Hearing none, you can move on to your next witness.
And Nathan, I guess if you can take us through the Bakken structure underlying these proposed spacing units, I guess to the extent that there's any differences that you'd like to highlight from the previous two cases, why don't you do that?
Yes, G1 for this case, there's no real difference between the previous cases, just the updated DSU outline showing the 2880.
And how about the ISOPAC map, G2, anything unique or different with respect to this spacing unit?
No, nothing unique either.
Okay, and the type log, is that the same?
Same type log as the previous two cases, yes.
Okay. I have no further questions for Mr. Gableman. I'd offer the geology exhibits in this case.
Any objection? The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none, move on to your next witness.
And Mike, I think we can again bypass E1. We've already kind of gone through the overview of the sort of overall development, and let's move on to E2 then. Can you describe for us your proposed development plan for the 2880 that we're proposing?
Yeah, so in this 2880 acre unit that we're proposing 10 Middle Bakken wells to be spaced out across that 1.5 by 3 mile DSU.
And then let's move on to E3. Can you take us through the reservoir data and economics for this proposed spacing unit in the wells?
Yes, so these economics are depicting 3 mile laterals with a EUR of 758 MBO. And at the 55 and 250 deck, it is shown to be economic with a 2.20 undiscounted ROI.
And I have no further questions for Mr. Brown on this case. I'd offer the engineering exhibits and the gas capture plan affidavit.
Any objections? The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Mike, on exhibit E1 and E2, you showed two different surface locations.
Yes, on
one there, I do have two separate surface locations. It is possible that this will be consolidated into a single surface location in the center, but right now, as a matter of reducing step outs, the current plan would be to have two separate surface hole locations.
And what is your, if you do have two surface locations, what is your plan for development? Are you gonna drill this with one rig, with two rigs, one rig and move from one location to the next? How is that gonna play out?
I'm not sure at this point whether it'll be one or two rigs, but in either case, it will be all developed at once.
So if it's one rig, it'll move from one location to the next?
That is correct, yes.
Would the wells be completed at approximately the same time, or how is that gonna work?
They would be completed at roughly the same time, depending on spacing between wells. There's a possibility that we could bring on some wells a little earlier than, I think the plan would be work from west to east, and we might be able to bring on some of those west wells while still completed over on the east, but it'll roughly be the same time frame.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions from commission staff? Seeing none, you may move on to your next case, correct, Mr. Mann?
Yes, Mr. Examiner, case number 29149 we're looking at now. And Greg, in case number 29149, I guess, can you identify the proposed spacing unit that we're looking at for this case?
Sure, and this is the east section line of the case that we heard before, located in 153-102, section 10, 11, 14, 15, 22, and 23.
Okay. And then what would Oasis working interest be in that proposed spacing unit?
In that proposed spacing unit, we have a working interest of 46.03%.
No further questions for Mr. Sandberg. I'd offer the land exhibits.
Any objection?
No objection.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none, you may move on to your next witness.
Okay, and Nathan, again, G1, G2, G3, the structure map, ISPEC map, and type log, anything different from what you've previously testified to?
Nothing materially different, no.
Okay. And Mr. Examiner, I have no further questions. I'd offer the geology exhibits for this case.
No objection, no questions.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none, you may move on to your next witness.
And Mike, again, in this case, let's bypass the overview sort of field area map that you've already testified on and move on to E2 and just explain how you plan to develop this proposed 3840.
Yes, this 3840 acre section line unit, we are proposing a single middle Bakken wellbore to be developed. This will be developed in conjunction with the 2880 acre spacing unit previously described in case 29148.
Okay. And then move on to E3. Can you take us through the economics, reservoir data for this one?
Yes, so with a 3-mile lateral, we're looking at a well EUR of 758 MBO, and at a price deck of 55 and 250, we're looking at an undiscounted ROI of 2.20.
And I have no further questions for Mr. Brown in this case. I'd offer the engineering exhibits and the gas capture plan affidavit.
No objection and no questions.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Mike, this well will be drilled from a pad in the previous case, whether it's 2 pads from the east pad, or if it's one pad, they'll all be drilled from that same pad?
Yes, this will share a pad with wells from that 2880 acre spacing unit.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions from commission staff? Seeing none, Mr. Mann, you can move on to your next case.
29150, and Greg, I guess this is sort of the last piece of the puzzle here. Can you identify the proposed 640 that we're talking about?
Yes, the 640 we're proposing here is in 153-102. It's in the west half of Section 16 and the west half of Section 21.
And then what would Oasis working interest be in the proposed 640?
In that proposed 640, our working interest would be 62.32%.
I have no further questions for Mr. Sandberg in this case. I'd offer exhibits L1 and L2.
No objection, no questions.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none, Mr. Mann, you may move on to your next witness.
And Nathan, again, with respect to your structure map, isopac map, type log, essentially the same exhibits from the previous cases that you testified on, is that correct?
That's correct.
And there's nothing unique with respect to this case that needs to be addressed?
No.
Okay, I have no further questions for Mr. Gableman on this case. I'd offer G1 through G3.
No objection, no questions.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none, you may move on to your last witness.
And Mike, again, let's start with E2 on this one, and can you describe for us how you'd plan to develop this proposed 640?
Yes, we're proposing 3 Middle Bakken well bores to be drilled from the north end of Section 16, setbacks 150-foot north-south and 500-foot east-west off of the west half of Sections 16 and 21.
And then moving on to E3, can you summarize the reservoir data and economics for this proposed 640?
Yes, so these 2-mile laterals, we are looking at 550 MBO EURs, and at a 55 and 250 deck, showing it as being economic with a 1.86 undiscounted ROI.
Okay. And then, Mike, I guess in each of these cases, if the commission were to approve the requested spacing units and you develop these lands sort of as you've testified to and as you have depicted in Exhibit E1 in each of those cases, in your opinion, is that going to prevent waste, protect relative rights, and prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yes, I do believe that is the case.
Okay, I have no further questions for Mr. Brown. I'd offer E1 through E3 in the gas capture plan affidavit.
No objection, no questions.
Exhibits are admitted. Are there any further questions from commission staff?
Mike, this is Bruce. On your gas oil ratio, you're indicating fairly low, 750 on, I believe, all the cases. And what do you expect on a producing gas oil ratio? Are you going to be pretty aggressive on producing these and thus increase the gas?
We do expect that to increase as the bubble point is reached and the wells mature.
Okay, and
So that is just an initial.
And do you alert your midstream operator of your production method and expected gas increase?
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none, Mr. Mann, do you have anything further here? Or?
Mr. Examiner, I have nothing further in any of these cases. Thank you.
And as well as Mr. Bender, did you have?
No, I got what I needed, thank you.
Okay, oh, sure. All right. And That will conclude the case file in, let's see, case number, or was there a request to keep the record open? I believe in the very first case, I made a note.
Yeah, hey, Greg, like with respect to the supplemental exhibit on your ownership in section 3 and the east half of 4, is a week long enough for you to put that together?
Absolutely, that's more than enough.
1 week out, that will be January 26th.
Okay.
The record will remain open until January 26th, 2022. This will conclude the hearing for case numbers 29146, 29147, 29148, 29149, and 29150. Moving on, we will hear case number 29151, application of Oasis Petroleum North America LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Deepwater Creek Bay Bakken Pool to establish a 1280-acre spacing unit described as sections 18 and 19, Township 150 North, Range 90 West, McLean County, North Dakota, and authorize 8 horizontal wells to be drilled on such unit and for such other relief as may be appropriate. Would all interested parties please step forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of Oasis Petroleum North America, LLC. And Mr. Examiner, Broderick Brown is going to be the land witness on this case, but the other 2 witnesses will be the same, Mr. Gableman and Mike Brown again.
Okay. So your first witness is Broderick Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Brown, are you on the line? Or Broderick?
Yes, I am.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Broderick, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Yes, Broderick Brown, employed by Oasis Petroleum as a landman. Address is at 1001 Fannin, Suite 1500, Houston, Texas, 77002.
Broderick, have you previously testified before this commission?
No.
Can I have you briefly take us through your educational background and work experience in the area of land management?
Yes. So I graduated from the University of Oklahoma with a degree in energy management, and I have over 7.5 years of experience as a landman. Upon graduating from the University of Oklahoma, I worked for BHP Billiton for about 4 years as a landman, supporting assets in Texas, Arkansas, and Louisiana. And then for the last 3.5 years, I have been in Oasis. In my current role, I'm the landman responsible for the North Dakota asset that was formerly owned by QEP Resources.
Okay. And Broderick, you're familiar then with the land issues related to and underlying the proposed 1280 we're talking about today?
Yes.
Okay. I'd move the testimony of Mr. Brown be received as that of an expert in this case.
It will be received as expert testimony.
And Broderick, let's start with exhibit number L1. Can you identify the proposed spacing unit we're talking about?
Yes, Exhibit L1 depicts the regional locator map showing the proposed spacing unit being all of sections 18 and 19, Township 150 North, Range 90 West, in McLean County.
Okay. And Broderick, what is Oasis' working interest in that proposed 1280?
Yeah, Exhibit L2 depicts the DSU again, and then the proposed or the working interest for Oasis would be approximately 84%.
Okay. And then let's move on to L3, if you can identify the working interest in each of the 640s that make up that proposed spacing unit.
Yes, for Section 18, Oasis working interest is approximately 68%, and for Section 19, Oasis working interest is 100%.
Okay. I have no further questions for Mr. Brown. I'd offer exhibits L1 through L3.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none, you may move on to your next witness.
Nathan, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Yes, my name is Nathan Gableman. I'm employed by Oasis Petroleum as a geologist, located at 1001 Fannin, Suite 1500, Houston, Texas, zip code 77002.
And Mr. Examiner, he's previously been qualified as an expert, is he, in this case as well?
He already received as of an expert, but Mr. Gableman, let me swear you in one more time for this separate case here. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
Nathan, can you take us through your exhibit G1 and walk us through the structure underlying the proposed 1280?
Yes, G1 is a structure map on the Upper Bakken Shale on a 20-foot contour interval, outlining the 1280 in blue there. Also showing the type log of the MH1-18H-150-90 within the DSU, showing a gradual dip to the west.
Okay, let's move on to G2, if you can take us through that map.
G2 is an isopac map on the Middle Bakken, again showing the DSU's location and the type log of the MH1-18 in the upper corner there.
Okay, and let's move on to that type log, G3.
G3 illustrates the type log within the DSU, that MHA 1-18H-150, highlighting the Bakken petroleum system with the gamma ray on the left-hand side, the receptivity in the middle, and the porosity logs on the far right.
Okay. I have no further questions for Mr. Gableman. I'd offer G1 through G3.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none, let's see. Mike Brown, are you on the line?
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
And Mike, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Yes, my name is Mike Brown. I'm a development engineer with Oasis Petroleum. Address is 1001 Fannin Street, Suite 1500, Houston, Texas, 77002.
Mr. Examiner, does Mr. Brown remain qualified as an expert in this case?
Yeah, we received as expert testimony.
Mike, let's start with Exhibit E1. Can you take us through your proposed development plan for this 1280?
Yes, Exhibit E1 depicts proposed 8 Middle Bakken well bores. We intend to drill from the north end of the proposed DSU, so north end of Section 18, that is away from the lake. There.
Let's move on to E2. Why don't you summarize your reservoir data and economics for us?
Yes, on these proposed 2-mile laterals, we're looking at a well EUR of 642 MBO. With a price deck of 55 and 250, we are showing well to be economic with an undiscounted ROI of 2.08.
So Mike, in your opinion, would creation of this 1280 with the development you've described prevent waste and protect relative rights?
Yes, it would.
I have no further questions for Mr. Brown. I'd offer E1, E2, and the gas capture plan affidavit.
The exhibits and affidavit are admitted. Are there any further questions from commission staff?
Mike, on your exhibit E1, is there a plan to continue to produce those existing diagonal wells?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, this is Bruce Hicks. The 2 wells that QEP drilled and completed were about the same time frame, although the south well has produced twice as much oil. What's your accounting of that?
I do not have a view on that.
You don't know about refracs or anything if...
I believe these have been refracked. I'd have to look back on the records, but I do remember some refracs.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, those two diagonal wells, are they both completed in the Middle Bakken?
Yeah, that's been done.
And if I missed this, I'm sorry, but what's the relationship between QEP and Oasis in this spacing unit?
Oasis purchased these assets from QEP closing late 2021. Actually would have been, I guess, Diamondback.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions for this witness? Seeing one? None? Mr. Mann, is there anything further?
Nothing further, Mr. Examiner.
Well, that will conclude the hearing in case number 29151.
Okay.
Moving on, we will hear case number 29152. Application of Kraken Operating LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Oliver Bakken Pool to establish a stand-up 1920 acre spacing unit described as Section 32, Township 158 North, Range 98 West, and Sections 5 and 8, Township 157 North, Range 98 West, Williams County, ND, and authorize 2 horizontal wells to be drilled on such unit and granting such other relief as may be appropriate. Would all interested parties please step forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of Kraken Operating LLC. I guess I'll be appearing in each of the following 2 Kraken cases as well, and I will have Alan White, Brian Lucero, and Matt Luna testify. Oh, yeah, that might be.
Please enter your access code followed by the pound or hash sign.
Alan, can you hear me?
I can't make you hear us.
It's not very well.
Now.
A little bit better.
I'll try to talk directly into the phone.
Okay. Are Brian and Matt linked in as well?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
All right, Mr. White, I'm going to put you under oath. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Alan, can I have you state your, oh, sorry.
Okay.
Jumped the gun a little.
But I heard, he said he did, yeah.
Yeah, Alan, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Yes, my name is Alan White. I'm employed by Kraken Oil and Gas as the land manager. Our address is 9805 Katy Freeway, Suite 300, Houston, Texas 77024.
And Alan, have you previously testified before this commission?
Yes, I have.
And have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes, I have.
I'd move the testimony of Mr. White be received as that of an expert in these cases.
It will be received as expert testimony.
Okay. And Alan, let's start with Exhibit L1, the locator map.
Sure. L1 is a regional locator map of the Oliver Field, which is the field contained the 1920 acre spacing unit that we have proposed here. Moving on to Exhibit L2 is a locator map depicting the proposed 1920 acre spacing unit consisting of sections 29 and 32 of 158 North, 98 West, and sections 5 and 8, 157, 98 West.
These are both Kraken-operated DSUs, and below this map you'll see our breakdown of the working interest and allocation for each unit in the proposed 1,920-acre spacing unit. You will see that Kraken owns a majority in 76.41% of this unit, proposed unit.
Okay, I have no further questions for Mr. White in this case. I'd offer the land exhibits.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Alan, the application is for a stand-up 1920 consisting of sections 32, 5, and 8. And on your exhibit L2, you're showing us a 2560.
I depicted it at 20 because we're having
Alan,
section 29.
You're cutting out, Alan.
Can you hear me better now, Wade?
A little bit. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll try. The reason why it's depicted that way is because we're allocating both section 29 and 32 to the overlapping 1920 because they were originally pooled as 1,208 acre units. I'm just depicting them that way now because those two sections are being allocated to the overall 1920 at a 33% allocation rate, and sections 5 and 8 are being allocated at 66% allocation rate.
What is your interest in the spacing unit?
It is 76% in the 1920, but if you look at sections 5 and 8, we have a 66% working interest in that DSU. In sections 29 and 32, we have a 97%. And if you see there, I applied allocation values to each of that. So the overall allocation for the 1,920 acre spacing is going to be 76.41.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none. Mr. Lucero, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Brian, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
My name is Brian Lucero. I'm employed by Kraken Oil and Gas as their geology manager. Our address is 9805 Katy Freeway, Suite 300, Houston, Texas, 77024.
And Brian, have you previously testified before this commission?
Yes, sir.
And have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes, I have.
I'd move the testimony of Mr. Lucero be received as that of an expert in these cases.
It will be received as expert testimony.
And Brian, why don't you take us through G1, your structure map for the Middle Bakken?
Exhibit G1 is a structure map based on the top of the Middle Bakken Formation. It's displayed with 50-foot contour intervals showing dip roughly to the south. It also shows the location of our type log.
Okay, let's move on to the type log.
Type log is the Fairbanks 1-20H, showing the Middle Bakken as well as the Three Forks Formation.
Okay, I have no further questions for Mr. Lucero. I'd offer the geology exhibits.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none. Is it Matt Luna? Are you on the line?
Yeah.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Matt, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
My name is Matt Luna. I'm employed by Kraken Oil and Gas as the Vice President of Development. The business address is 9805 Katy Freeway, Suite 300, Houston, Texas, 77024.
And Matt, have you previously testified before this commission?
I have.
And have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
I have, yes.
I'd move the testimony of Mr. Luna be received as that of an expert in this case.
It will be received as that of an expert.
And Matt, starting with Exhibit E1, can you, I guess, explain how you would intend to drill and complete the proposed wells in these spacing units?
Yes. So Exhibit E1 shows a lateral wellbore schematic for the proposed 15,000-foot lateral. It shows the casing string designs with the conductor, surface casing, intermediate, and production liner. Within the liner, we plan to utilize a cemented liner and cement the liner. When we complete, we plan to perform plug-and-perf technology, and our stage spacing will be approximately 167 feet per stage.
Okay. And then let's move on to E2. If you can take us through your proposed development in this proposed spacing unit, plus the, I guess, how it relates to the adjoining lands.
Yeah, so Exhibit E2 kind of walks through this case and the next two following it. What Exhibit E2 shows is within the black outline represents Kraken-operated wells and Kraken-operated acreage. And so within the black line, starting from the bottom wells colored in red, those wells reflect approved permits unrelated to this case, but just for context, starting from the south, the wells in colored red reflect currently approved permits. Moving north, the wells in navy reflect the current case of 29152 for the proposed 1920 in 15798 sections 5 and 8 and 15898 section 32. Those two wells are of the subject of the current case, and we're proposing to drill those two and target the middle Bakken. The remaining wells in green and blue are for the next cases that we will touch on. But for case 2912, this case here, they're shown in navy. We plan to propose to drill two, target the middle Bakken.
Okay. Let's move on to Exhibit E3, the reservoir data for the proposed spacing unit.
Exhibit E3 shows the reservoir data for the proposed 1920, with the TBD top of the middle Bakken being approximately 10,400, the TBD top of the Three Forks being approximately 10,475. Moving down to the reserves, we are estimating an EUR of approximately 820,000 barrels of oil. And again, and you can see the GOR that we are estimating in the first 18 months when we install ESP. We see the GOR increase from approximately 800 beginning at IP, and over the 18 months of ESP increased to 1,500 standard cubic feet per barrel. We then install a rod pump where we see GOR stabilized at around 1,000 standard cubic feet per barrel. Exhibit E4 shows the economics for the proposed Middle Bakken 3-mile lateral. Again, an estimated EUR of around 820,000 barrels of oil and our estimated CapEx of $8.5 million. Running a recent strip deck generates an IRR of approximately 200% and payout just over a little over 1 year.
Okay. Matt, in your opinion, if the proposed 1920 is granted and you develop it as you've described, is that going to prevent waste and protect relative rights?
Yes.
I have no further questions for Mr. Luna. I'd offer the engineering exhibits and the gas capture affidavit in this case.
Exhibits and affidavit are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Matt, is there any reason that Kraken is proposing 3-mile laterals instead of just drilling out the spacing units already established for 1280s?
we view that the 3-mile lateral generate stronger performance and prevents waste as opposed to needing 3 pads to develop across these stand-up 1280s. We can accomplish that with just 2 and recover more oil out of 3 miles and become a more efficient operator as well.
Okay. Would you be able to provide just an exhibit kind of depicting the cost savings between the 2 development plans?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. One other thing actually for Brian Lucero, Exhibit G1. Can I have you resubmit that in a digital format? The scales at the top of the logs are pretty much impossible to read.
Yes, I'm sure we can.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from staff? Hearing none. Anything further, Mr. Mann?
Not in this case, Mr. Examiner.
Okay. And there was a request to keep the record open.
Yeah, hey, Matt, on putting together that cost savings developing on the 1920 versus the 1280, how long do you need to put that together?
We can probably do that by the end of the week.
So can we hold it open for a week?
Sure. I believe that was January 26th.
Okay.
The record will remain open until January 26th.
We'll aim to get you those by Friday, too.
Yeah, that's fine.
So that will conclude the hearing for case number 29152. Moving on, we'll hear case number 29098. Application of Kraken Operating LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Oliver Bakken Pool to establish an overlapping 3840 acre spacing unit described as sections 32 and 33, Township 158 North, Range 98 West, and sections 4, 5, 8, and 9, Township 157 North, Range 98 West, Williams County, ND, and authorize 1 horizontal well to be drilled on such unit and for such other relief as may be appropriate. All interested parties, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of Kraken Operating LLC, and I'll have the same 3 witnesses testify in this case.
Okay. Mr. White, are you still on the line?
I am.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
It will be received as expert testimony.
Okay, and Alan, let's go through your land exhibits, beginning with L1, the locator map.
Sure. Sorry. Exhibit L1 is a regional locator map of the Oliver Bakken Field. Exhibit L2 is a depiction of the proposed 3840 spacing unit that we are asking for, consisting of sections 32 and 33 of Township 158 North, 98 West, as well as sections 4, 5, 8, and 9 of 157 North, 98 West. I've depicted it here similarly as the previous case, in that I have an allocation value assessed to each of these DSUs, each of these 4 DSUs, which are all 4 Kraken-operated DSUs. Starting with sections 29 and 32, Kraken owns a 97.22% working interest in this DSU with an allocation factor of 24% to the 3840. In sections 28 and 33, Kraken owns a 63.19% working interest in this DSU, equating to a 15.8% allocation value to 3840. Sections 5 and 8, Kraken owns a 66% working interest, equating to a 16.5% working allocation value to the 3840. And sections 4 and 9, we own 84.31% working interest, equating to a 21.08 allocation value to the 3840, totaling to a 77.68% working interest in this lease line unit.
Okay.
consisting of the sections that I've stated.
Yep. I have no further questions for Mr. White. I'd offer the land exhibits.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none, we'll move on to Mr. Lucero. Are you still on the line?
I am.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Brian, can you take us through your structure map for this case?
Yes, sir. Exhibit G1, again, is a structure map based on the top of the Middle Bakken Formation, displayed with 50-foot contour intervals showing dip roughly to the south. It also shows the location of our type log.
Okay. And type log, that's same type log, I'm assuming, right, from the last case?
Yes, sir. That is the Fairbanks 1-20H.
Okay. I have no further questions for Mr. Lucero. I'd offer the geology exhibits.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any further questions from staff?
Brian, again, I'm going to ask that we supplement with a digital version so the scales can be seen on G2.
Certainly.
And Mr. Luna, are you still on the line?
I am, yes.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
All right. Matt, Exhibit E1, your wellbore schematic, presumably you'll drill and complete this section line well the same as you testified to in the previous case?
That's correct, Wade. Exhibit E1 through E4 here are the same as the previous case and as for the next one. But for Exhibit E1, we plan to utilize cemented liner, plug and perf, and space stages approximately 167 feet apart. Exhibit E2, again, the same map, the outline, everything within the outline represents Kraken-operated acreage and Kraken-operated wells, proposed wells. The proposed 3840 shown there in green would be a 3-mile lateral targeting the Middle Bakken. It will be drilled along with the previous case, the Navy wells, and along with the approved permits, those wells on the south. So that gray pad there, just north of Section 10, represents a 6-well pad that we are currently planning to spud sometime in June. Exhibit E3, similar as the previous, same exhibit as the previous case, walks through the reservoir data, kind of showing the GOR we're modeling and the UR, along with the reservoir properties. Exhibit E4 shows the economics, similar, same exhibit as the previous case. With an EUR of 820,000, our capex estimated of 8.5 million. At a recent strip, we see an NPV of around 9.3 million, and payout again just over 1 year.
And Matt, if the 3840 is approved to allow for the drilling of that section line well, is that going to prevent waste and protect relative rights?
Yes.
I have no further questions for Mr. Luna. In this case, I'd offer the engineering exhibits and the gas capture plan affidavit.
The exhibits and affidavit are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Matt, sections 4, 5, 8, and 9 are currently at lease line 2560. Sections 28, 29, 32, and 33 are currently at lease line 2560. Is it your request that those space units be terminated?
That's correct.
With that being said, what's going to happen to the lease line between 28 and 29?
Yes, so that lease lot, I'll pass it over to Alan White about our plan, future plans for that. Yeah, with saying, demonstrate section 17.
Yeah, Alan, you're cutting out. Can you start over?
Or can you hear me?
Yep.
With regards to concerning 17, 16, 21, 28, we will propose no overlapping spacing unit there. We did want to reach out, and we have reached out to the offsetting operator of section 16 and 21, which is HEF. We wanted to come to some sort of agreement before we went ahead and asked for the relief to drill that leaf line well, and we've been in communication with them, and we'll continue to work towards an amicable agreement with regards to operating that leaf line.
So if I understood your testimony correctly, did you say that sections 16, 17, 20, 21, 28, and 29 would be a future 3840?
Correct.
And when is that application forthcoming?
We want to work on our communication with HES and come to an agreeable solution as to who is going to operate that leaf line, but we can submit it in the next month or so, if that suffices.
Well, it's up to you if you're going to submit it or not, but I don't know why the commission would approve the southern 3840 without a one that would take care of the lease line between 28 and 29.
Okay, understood.
Okay, thank you.
Seeing no further questions, Mr. Mann, I believe there was, another supplement probably till January 26th again?
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah. It's the same digital copy of the same type log, so. Yep.
Record will remain open until January 26th. That will conclude the hearing in case number 29098. Moving on, case number 29045. Application of Kraken Operating LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Rainbow and/or Oliver Bakken pools to establish a stand-up 19-20 acre spacing unit described as Section 17, 20, and 29, Township 158 North, Range 98 West, Williams County, ND, and authorize 2 horizontal wells to be drilled on such unit and granting such other relief as may be appropriate. Will all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of Kraken Operating LLC, and I have the same 3 witnesses testifying in this case as well.
Sure. Mr. White, are you still on the line?
Yes, I am.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
And Alan, let's walk through your land exhibits again, beginning with the locator map.
Sure. Exhibit L1 is a regional locator map depicting the Rainbow and Oliver Bakken field. Exhibit L2 is similar to the previous 2 testimonies for 2 cases, depicting sections 17 and 20, as well as sections 29 and 32 of 158 North, 98 West. Both of these are Kraken-operated DSUs. You will see that Kraken owns a 36.98% working interest in sections 17 and 20, equating to a 12.33% allocation value to the overlapping 1,920 acre spacing unit we are proposing here. And in sections 29 and 32, Kraken operates a 97.22% working interest, equating to a 64.81% working interest allocation value. That totals 77.14% working interest in the proposed 1,920 spacing unit, overlapping spacing unit.
Okay. I have no further questions that offer the land exhibits.
The exhibits are admitted. Any questions from commission staff? Seeing none. Mr. Lucero, still on the line?
Yes, I am.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
And Brian, can you take us through your structure map for this case?
Yes, sir. Once again, the structure map across the fields shown, based on top of the Middle Bakken Formation, displayed with a 50-foot contour interval, shows dip generally to the south, also shows the location of our type log.
Okay. And let's move on to the type log. Same type log as the previous two cases, correct?
Yes, it is.
I have no further questions for Mr. Lucero. I'd offer the geology exhibits.
Exhibits are admitted. Any questions from staff?
Just the same request to
Yep.
supplement.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Luna, are you still on the line?
Yes.
All right, one more time. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Okay. And Matt, let's go through your engineering exhibits. Again, E1, we're looking at 3 mile laterals again, so I'm assuming this is going to be same as the previous two cases with respect to drilling and completing?
Yes. Exhibit E1 shows that we'll utilize submitted liner, plug and perf, and space the stages approximately 167 feet apart.
Okay. Let's move on to your proposed development plan.
Exhibit E2 shows the proposed 1920 wells, the northernmost blue wells for case 29045. Exhibit E3 shows the reservoir data for the proposed 1920, with EUR and GOR at the bottom there, 820,000 barrels EUR, and GOR ranging from 800 to 1,500. Exhibit E4 shows the well economics for the proposed 1920 Middle Bakken 3 mile lateral with an EUR of approximately 820,000 and recent strip in our CapEx estimate of 8.5 million generates attractive economics of around 9.3 million in PB10 and approximately 200% IRR.
And again, Matt, in your opinion, would the proposed 1,920 acre spacing to allow for the drilling of the wells you've described, is that going to prevent waste and protect relative rights?
Yes.
Okay, I have no further questions for Mr. Luna. I'd offer the engineering exhibits and gas capture affidavit.
The exhibits and affidavit are admitted. Any questions from staff? Seeing none. Anything further, Mr. Mann?
No, Mr. Examiner, thank you.
Okay. That will conclude the hearing for case, or I suppose we'll keep the record open on this one until January 26th as
Yep.
well. Just as. That will conclude the hearing for case number 29045. Moving on, case number 29046, application of Kraken Operating LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Oliver Bakken Pool to establish a stand-up 1920 acre spacing unit described as Section 33, Township 158 North, Range 98 West, and Sections 4 and 9, Township 157 North, Range 98 West, Williams County, ND, and authorize 2 horizontal wells to be drilled on such unit, and granting such other relief as may be appropriate. This case is continued to February. Moving on. Case number 29153. Application of WPX Energy Williston LLC for an order amending the field rules for the Squab Creek Bakken Pool, McKenzie County, ND, to create and establish an overlapping stand-up 640-acre spacing unit comprised of the east half of Sections 17 and 20, both in Township 149 North, Range 94 West, authorizing the drilling of up to 2 horizontal wells in said proposed overlapping 640-acre spacing unit, and or such other and further relief as appropriate. Will all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. David Bankson, Stinson LLP, 424 South 3rd Street, Suite 206, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing on behalf of WPX Energy Williston LLC. I have 3 witnesses, all appearing by phone today. Mr. Jeffrey Poole, land, and his first name is spelled Geoffrey. Mr. Mark Edwards, geology, and Mr. Bradley Ballinger, engineering.
Mr. Poole, are you on the line?
I need. Oh, now straight out.
Hello.
Yes, this is David Bengtson. Who do I have on the line?
Hey, David, you've got Jeff, Brad, and Mark here in the room.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. You are on in the hearing room.
All right, Mr. Poole, I'm going to swear you in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Okay. We're getting a little bit of feedback from your microphone in the room you're in. I don't know if there's more than one microphone on, and if you can mute all but the one that's being used, but we'll see how it goes.
Okay, thank you. We'll try to clear that up.
Okay, my first witness is Jeff Poole Land. Please state your name.
Jeffrey Poole.
Mr. Poole, by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
I am employed by Devon Energy, WPX Energy Williston LLC, as a wholly owned subsidiary as a landman.
Okay. Have you previously testified in matters before this commission, and in those instances, were your qualifications and testimony accepted in those matters as that of an expert?
Yes, I have.
I would offer the testimony of Mr. Poole in this matter be accepted as that of an expert.
It will be accepted as that of an expert.
Thank you. Mr. Poole, have you prepared exhibits that you intend to present with your testimony today?
Yes, I have.
Okay. First, let's turn to Exhibit L1. Would you please identify and explain what's depicted in that exhibit?
Yes, Exhibit L1 is a regional locator map showing the application lands outlined in green, located within the boundaries of the Fort Berthold Indian Reservation.
Okay, thank you. Please turn to Exhibit L2. Would you identify that exhibit and explain what's depicted?
Yes, Exhibit L2 is an area locator map showing the application lands being the east half of Sections 17 and 20, the proposed 640-acre unit.
Okay. And next, L3. Please identify that exhibit and explain what's depicted.
Exhibit L3 is a working interest plat showing WPX's estimated working interest at approximately 84% within the application lands.
Okay. And Mr. Poole, this application is related in some respects to an application that was filed previously in case by WPX in case number 29012 that was heard in December. Could you explain the relationship between the application and what's being requested in this case and what had been requested in case number 29012?
Yes. The application in 29012 was for a stand-up 960-acre unit incorporating the east half of Section 8 just to the north. Our operation plans would be to drill both 2 and 3 mile laterals. So the 3 mile laterals would be accounted for in the previously heard case. The 2 mile laterals are now accounted for in the case we're hearing today.
Okay. Thank you. I have no further questions for this witness, and I'd offer exhibits L1 through L3.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Hearing none. Mr. Edwards, are you on the line?
I am on the line.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Okay. Please state your name.
Mark Edwards.
Mr. Edwards, by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
I'm employed by Devon Energy Corp., and my capacity is a senior geologic advisor.
Okay. And I believe, as Mr. Poole previously explained, WPX Energy Williston is a wholly owned subsidiary of Devon Energy Corp. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Have you previously testified in matters before this commission? In those instances, were your qualifications and testimony previously accepted in those matters as that of an expert?
I have, and they were.
I would offer the testimony of Mr. Edwards in this matter be accepted as that of as an expert.
It will be received as that of an expert.
Mr. Edwards, have you prepared exhibits that you intend to present with your testimony today?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Please first turn to Exhibit G1. Would you please identify that exhibit and explain what is depicted?
Yeah, Exhibit G1 is a structure map hung on the top of the upper Bakken shale. And the contour interval is 10 feet. The red rectangle is of the application lands highlighted. And the structure is a gently structure dipping to the west. And the red star next to our application lands is the reference well that I will discuss in Exhibit G2.
Okay, please turn to Exhibit G2, if you would, and identify that exhibit and explain what is depicted.
G2 is an exhibit of our type log, and I've broken up the different formations through the Bakken and Three Forks. The green arrows represent the targets that we are drilling for in the Middle Bakken and in the first bench of the Three Forks.
Okay, and those are the two wells that are going to be located in the proposed DSU, correct?
Correct.
Okay. That's all the questions I have for this witness. I would offer Exhibits G1 and G2.
The exhibits are admitted. Any questions from commission staff? Seeing none. Mr. Ballinger,
Yes.
do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Please state your name for the record.
Bradley Ballinger,
Mr. Ballinger, by whom are you employed and in what capacity?
WPX Energy, a subsidiary of Devon Energy, and I'm employed as a reservoir engineer.
Have you previously testified in matters before this commission, and on those occasions were your qualifications and testimony accepted in those matters as that of an expert?
I have, and yes, they were.
Okay. I would offer the testimony of Mr. Ballinger in this matter as that of an expert witness.
Will be received as that of an expert.
Mr. Ballinger, have you prepared exhibits you intend to present with your testimony today?
I have.
Okay, let's turn first to Exhibit E1. Would you please identify that exhibit and explain what is depicted?
E1 is our development plan. The black box is the 640 unit we are hearing today. We have two 2-mile wells there. The red well is our proposed Bakken well, and the blue well is our proposed Three Forks wells, and the gray wells are existing.
Okay, and the proposed Bakken well is a middle Bakken well, is that correct?
Correct, middle Bakken.
Okay. Please turn to Exhibit E2. Would you please identify that exhibit and explain what is depicted?
Yes, this is the reservoir properties and the economics for the 2-mile wells. The first one here on E2 is the Bakken 2-mile well. We have an oil gravity at 43 degrees API, bottom hole temp of roughly 221 degrees, with a gas flow ratio of just over 1,000 cubic feet per barrel, and it's a tip gravity of 0.9. We're looking at about 1.72 formation volume factor, and the unit size is 640 acres. The middle Bakken is about 43 feet thick in this area with a 4.2% porosity and 60% water saturation, yielding oil in place of about just over 19 million barrels. As far as the economics go below, these are individual well economics. We're expecting the middle Bakken EOR about 934,000, and you can see the gas EOR as well. This makes our recovery factor about 4.9%. The economics were ran at a $60 flat oil price, or average of a $6 oil price, and the average gas price of $2.50. And you can see our gross sales, seven stacks, operating cost, income, and investment numbers below. I'm not going to go into details at this time, unless you want. But overall, the return on investment is about 2.8 for these wells.
Okay, thank you. Same questions with respect to Exhibit E3.
E3 is the reservoir properties and economics for the 2-mile Three Forks well. Oil gravity, bomb hole temp, gas flow ratio, the gravity is all the same as we had it for this area. The only difference about the pay thickness with Three Forks about 37 feet. Average porosity is about 5%. Water saturation is about 22%. Still yielding the same original oil in place as previously mentioned. We treat Three Forks and Bakken as the same. Therefore, our expected EUR for Three Forks is 934,000.
yielding a recovery factor of 4.9%. Once again, ran at about $6 average oil price, $2.50 average gas price. Same numbers as previously shown for the Bakken with return on investment of about 2.8.
Okay, thank you. Please turn to Exhibit E4 and identify that witness and explain what is depicted in that exhibit.
Yes, E4 is our preliminary construction diagram for our wellbore diagram. The middle Bakken well, this is just our standard three-string design that we have been using.
Okay, and same questions with respect to E5.
E5 is just our standard wellbore design for our Three Forks formation. Nothing out of the ordinary here.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Ballinger, in your opinion, would the proposed spacing unit that is the subject of this application and the development of that spacing unit as depicted in the exhibits, if allowed, would that prevent waste and protect relative rights?
Yes.
That's all the questions I have for this witness. Oh, excuse me, we have one more exhibit, Mr. Ballinger. That's the gas capture affidavit. And is that the typical gas capture affidavit for this application that is requested and supplied in connection with this applications of this nature?
It is.
Okay. That's all the questions I have for this witness. I would offer exhibits E1 through E5 and GCP 1.
The exhibits in the affidavit are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Brad and David, do you have any objection to us taking administrative notice of the development plan in case 29012?
I have no objection.
Okay, thank you.
Anything further? Mr. Bengtson?
Nothing further.
With that, that will conclude the hearing for case number 29153. And that concludes our hearing for the regular docket.
Okay.